Anime don't become iconic because they have a good story, good animation, or cool art style. Plenty of shows have one of those things. The ones that people remember for decades are the ones where everything works together. The world, the fights, the music, the tone, the designs, until the anime feels impossible to confuse with anything else.
Handle us, so cool, baby, scandalous. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So cool, baby, watch it now. It's a you. Can't handle us, so cool, baby, scandalous. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So cool, baby, watch it now.
One of the many examples of genius that make up Soul Eater, the weapon and Meister system means nobody gets to grow in isolation. Every insecurity, every flaw, every hidden strength or agenda gets dragged out through the partnership. Take Maka and Soul, for example. Both respect each other so much that failure becomes terrifying to them. Soul wants to live up to his own expectations of what a cool guy is. And instead of making that vain, his idea of someone who is cool is someone who will never let their partner or friends down. And Maka wants to be strong enough to not over rely on him. While these character traits could be boring in isolation, together creates this environment where they both constantly are pushing one another forward. Whether they're being pushed in a good or bad way changes as the story progresses, but it leads to some really engaging moments. And next up, we got Death the Kid, Liz and Patty. They balance him out, right? Kid has this overwhelming power, but spirals over the tiniest imperfections. Liz and Patty ground him, while mocking him for good measure. But Kid is the most powerful character in the main roster, yet he's also the goofiest. And that's saying something, especially when he's standing beside someone like Blackstar. Narratively, he acts as that bridge between the adults and the students of the DWMA. His power and his position give him the agency that the other characters don't have. So when there's a loose thread between the DWMA and the kids attending the school, Kid is the one who goes picking at it. Most pairs in Soul Eater represent balance. Crona and Ragnarock represent control, abuse, and fear. They show that the relationship between a weapon and its Meister isn't always beneficial, but can be toxic. There's an added layer in the fact that they're literally the same person in many ways, but each of them is almost taken hostage by the other. Any action either one of them takes is never truly their own. Every choice they make affects the other. Of course, this is all because of Medusa, but regardless, it shows that the Meister relationship with their weapon isn't always going to be a positive one. But my favorite example of this relationship is with Blackstar and Tsubaki. Tsubaki sees through Blackstar's bravado. Unlike everyone else, she doesn't punish him for it. The other characters see Blackstar as an annoying, arrogant loudmouth, a musclehead, idiot, only cares about showing off and being the center of attention. But Tsubaki is his partner. She has insight into him that nobody else has. And that lets her see Blackstar actually tries. Every time a test comes up, he studies for the entire week, and even though that never results in him doing well in the test, he always tries. He gives his best effort to literally everything he does. She can see through the bravado to the good underneath, his loyalty, his potential, his kindness, and his deep-rooted anxiety to prove that he isn't defined by his clan's actions. The need to prove his strength does not come from the same actions or intentions as those who came before him. But something that's like even better than that dynamic is just their designs. Every single character in Soul Eater has their own unique style and color palette. They stand out as individuals, not just characters. They don't really follow one strict visual theme. They're not all dressed in matching uniforms, nor do they look like they were designed to fit into the same organization. Their designs are based on who they are as individuals, and not just the DWMA or the setting they belong to. Some examples of this are very on the nose, like Kid's hair being an ironic joke about his obsession with symmetry, or Blackstar literally having a star on him that hints to his family's past. But that's part of the charm. They're not like Power Rangers, where everyone's in matching costumes. And they're not like something like Naruto, where a lot of the characters' appearance are shaped by the village that they're from, their uniform, their headband, or the visually distinct regional ninja gear that we see characters like Kakashi wear. Even though Naruto is a show that really does have quite distinct character designs. But in Soul Eater, the characters are way more personal. Maki, Soul, Blackstar, Tsubaki, Kid, Stein, Medusa, Crona, they all look like they came from completely different ideas, but somehow still belong in the same world and story. And the designs are so distinct. You can do all the tests. You can do the silhouette test, you'll be able to tell any character out from the roster. If you do the test of the colors, where it's just a line of colors, you can easily tell that this one's Blackstar. And all of this comes together for designs that tell you so much about the character before they even speak. This video is sponsored by Tokyotreat Sakuraco. I'm not gonna lie, it feels like something Lord Death himself would have shipped straight from Japan. Tokyotreat is packed with crazy Japanese snacks, limited edition Kit Kats, chips and drinks, and Sakuraco goes for the more traditional vibe. Artisan snacks and teas, and even household items at times. I tried the Kit Kat first, obviously. This Japanese exclusive flavor was interesting, to say the least. But what I really like about Sakuraco is that the boxes always come with tea, and both boxes come with cultural booklets to guide you along your journey. Check the links in the description below and use code Josephu for $5 off your first order. Thank you once again to Tokyotreat and Sakuraco for sponsoring this video. What world allows this vastly distinct roster to live in? Well, it's a world that's absolutely insane, and that's exactly why the characters work so well in it. But the world is so accepting of strange ideas and clashing art styles that nobody feels out of place. I mean, some locations feel like they belong in a completely different world. When Maka and Soul go to London, it mostly looks like London, looks like a normal city. Same goes for Russia and Japan. Other real world locations also exist and seem relatively grounded. But then you have places like Death City. It's a city that looks like a mountain built in a desert and around the DWMA. And the design of that is very clearly not as grounded as London. And this continues. There's other areas. Frankenstein's house, of course, you can tell it's Frankenstein's house because there's Frankenstein stitches all over it. And then you have Baba Yaga Castle, which is a giant spider-shaped fortress. Absolutely ridiculous idea on paper, but within the world of Soul Eater is very believable. And part of Soul Eater's allure in the beginning is that these differences aren't explained. This is apparently our world, right? Because London exists, Russia exists, Japan exists. These are places that still are here. But alongside them, you have witches, weapon bloodlines, and sword demons, death cities. A moon that looks like it's been doing a little more than watching you sleep. You're left asking, what happened to this world? How did it become a place where all these strange things and powers and individuals and societies exist all at the same time? And there's so many other questions. Another one that comes to mind is the technology. Soul Eater seems to have advanced technology in certain areas, like medicine, transportation. Like they have a train that literally will go on forever. But then you have moments where characters are using basic radio communication, and they react as if it's a revolutionary thing that they've never seen before. These are people who can talk to Lord Death whenever they want by scratching a few numbers into a window. Some of their technology is fairly modern, but then in certain areas, it seems strangely behind. It's just another thing of what makes the world of Soul Eater so interesting. The anime was so good early on because the anime staff knew exactly where the story was going. They familiarized themselves with the source material and produced a very loyal adaptation of the manga. And the staff list just explains why the anime was so good. First off, it was produced by Bone and it was directed by Takeya Inarashi. Inarashi said that adapting Soul Eater wasn't about copying the manga panel to panel, but the most important part was adapting its soul. Eater. These are all the things we listed above. The crooked smiles, the goofy comedy, the weapon and partner chemistry, the sudden emotional turns. He made an effort to take all of that and make it move within Bone's animation style. And before the anime had to invent its own path, it felt like the manga had been translated into motion with a detail and quality rare in TV anime at the time. But the most impactful element that was brought to the table in the anime was brought by Taku Unusagi. Without his OST, honestly, I don't think Soul Eater would have been remembered in the same way without him. The score fits the world so unbelievably well. It doesn't just sit in the background, it guides the tone, and it does so without overpowering the visuals. Instead, it enhances what is already there, matching the show's style and strange gothic comedy, and audibly pulls off those emotional U-turns that we've seen in the manga. Very rare when you have an anime that its art style and music choices genuinely feel like they came up together. That's what makes Wazuki's soundtrack so good. It understands the chaos of Soul Eater and gives that chaos rhythm. See, Soul Eater's anime aired from 2008 to 2009, while the manga continued all the way up till 2013, August 2013. The anime had 51 episodes to tell a story that at the time had not actually been finished. So around the later third of the anime, surrounding mainly the brew material, the show had to basically wean themselves off the manga and start building their own version of the ending. And in all fairness, it's fairly normal. Full Metal Alchemist is a perfect example of the same thing happening. It's why we have Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I wonder if we'll get a Soul Eater Brotherhood. Yummers. See, in today's climate, there's a lot more focus on the anime when it comes to a popular adaptation. We're seeing constantly in the new shonen that are airing right now that the mangaka seem to very quickly get burned out when the show becomes overly popular because they're forced into working even harder on manga, and mangakas already work pretty damn hard. I personally have noticed it with a lot of stories that I like where the writing and just overall storytelling and art seems to take a drastic downturn. Media gets picked up by the mainstream. I think Jujutsu Kaisen is the best example of that, but that's a video for another day. But in Soul Eater's case, they had a few options at their disposal. They could move forward with filler. They would have approached it the same way Bleach approached its filler. The manga needs more time with their arc, so they produce an anime original arc. Original stories and characters that will lead in to the canon material. This lets the show air, lets the studio produce an anime, and gives the mangaka more time. It just so happens that these arcs are the worst arcs in Bleach. I've watched the Bounce arc. I don't know why I put myself through that, but that's probably why Bones didn't go with that approach. Another option would be to simply wait for the source material to be finished. It's not really an option for the studio though, and they ended up coming up with the third option, creating an anime original ending. And on paper, I fully understand why. The anime already had momentum, hence why they didn't pause the production of the anime. It had a strong visual identity. It had a main villain. They had good character arcs that they could finish up with a 20 episode run. All these things were already built into the story. They had all the tools to make an ending. So they took that challenge and made one of their own. And they almost pulled it off. Because the sad thing is, the anime's ending, it understands the surface level of the conflict that needs to end in Soul Eater, but it doesn't have enough time or material to build a structure to fully resolve all of them in a satisfying way. And in that later third, there's a lot of differences between the anime and the manga. It's not just that it has a different ending. The manga keeps expanding, exploding with so much more detail, stories, and plot, but the anime really starts to compress. The anime takes the themes it already had and ties them up quickly and with an emotional conclusion that is serviceable. The manga, on the other hand, keeps making the world, as I said, bigger, darker. Everything seems to just compress towards Arachne and the Kishin because she befriends him. So the raid on Baba Yaga Castle essentially is the conclusion of the anime, while in the manga, that was only setup, baby. The manga literally takes things to a cosmic level. He's a way more developed and powerful problem than in the anime. It gives way more detail into things like madness and what it can do and what it actually means. And it explores the book of Abon, Noah, and the Death Sides, a friendship between Kid and the witches, way more on Lord Death. And the anime completely rewrites one of the Death Side's characters. He becomes a mechanic, while in the manga, he was an investigator with really strong soul perception, not a mechanic, although he did like coffee. But all these little things come together like a jigsaw puzzle, starting to show a full picture. Although the full picture is jank as hell, they still fit together perfectly. They don't look into the DWA's dark side. They've done some very morally dubious things in the past, and the manga puts so much emphasis on that. It starts asking whether Lord's Death system is even healthy. It questions order as a ideal, especially order that's built by a godlike figure who controls death. It gives Death the Kid a much bigger role than he had in the anime. Because the anime seems to forget that Death the Kid isn't just a student who has a fetish for symmetry. He's a fucking god, and he inherits the consequences of the world his father built. Now, that's not spoiling too much, but it's pretty goddamn grandiose. The manga develops everyone to a much higher degree than the anime does, obviously, but Kid is probably the one who is affected above all else. As I said earlier in the video, he was always positioned right between the students and the adults. He's a student, but he's Death's son, and they play with that a lot more in the manga, as the students start to collide with the adults on many different things, and Death almost acts as our narrative vehicle in those moments because we know what the adults have done, we know what the kids have done. We're stuck in the middle too. And it's kind of insane how the manga pulls that off. That the kid was one of the most outlandish characters, and now he's the one that we can understand the motivations and understanding of the world around him better than anyone else. Yet another reason why the manga is just insanely good. So now that you know everything I do, it begs the question, what should you do? I'm biased, but personally I think you should watch the anime up until it stops adapting the source material, episode 37, and then read the manga, because then you get the best of both worlds. The Soul Eater anime has an insane amount of value to me personally. It's not a failed adaptation, and up until it stops adapting the manga, it's really loyal to that source material. The anime is the reason why so many people fell in love with that story, me included. It gives Soul Eater sound, rhythm, music, and a voice. And when I read the manga, I hear Wazuki's music. I still image the characters talking with the same voice actors. I picture the world that Bones' energy moved into motion. My perception of Soul Eater is ever shaped by Bones' adaptation of the anime. And I honestly think that perception makes the manga even better, because the manga gives you the full story, but the anime gives you a feeling. It sets the atmosphere so strong that even when you move to that page, it lingers. It lives rent-free in your head. And sure, the anime ending didn't stick the landing, and realistically that was probably unavoidable. It caught up to an unfinished manga and had to dig its own way out. But god damn it, that does not erase what it achieved. Soul Eater was iconic. It just wasn't perfect. Hey, thanks so much for watching the video. Really appreciate it, genuinely. Soul Eater, getting into it has been so good. The manga is so much better than I expected. Honestly, just the extra art you get with owning the manga is just so cool. In my last video, in the pinned comment, I asked what you guys want me to cover next. All said Jormungandr, so that's what I'll be doing next. And after that, if this video does well, I'd really love to do a video on Fire Force. I've been reading the manga because I hear that the last season of the anime doesn't fully adapt it very well. Just like I do in Soul Eater, I'm moving straight to the manga and I'm already like 100 chapters in. So needless to say, I'm really liking it. But thanks again to my members. And if you want to become a member yourself, just let me know when you do and I'll give you your special role in the Discord server. Links for everything below. Again, just thanks a million for watching the video. Maybe subscribe.